Ladies and gentlemen, these are my Week 3 NFL predictions. Starting with the Thursday night game here, Carolina at Houston. Now to me, this is a trap game for the Carolina Panthers. I know everybody's starting to fall in love with the Carolina Panthers. Yes, Sam Darnold has played well. Yes, it looks like they have competent weapons in Christian McCaffrey, Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore. Yes, their defense, led by great second-year safety Jeremy Chin, is flying around the football. However, Houston, and I know week 1 they played Jacksonville and they dominated them, but last week against the Browns, and I know it was David Mills, and I know Tyrod Taylor didn't play the second half, but Houston, they still look well coached. They don't commit a lot of penalties. They remind me of the Dolphins from 2 years ago, where it was like, hey, early in the season, we may look like a very, very bad football team, but they're well coached and they're going to be in games. And the one thing that makes me nervous here about Carolina is, hey, listen, it's a short week. You've only got 18 passes of David Mills in his NFL career on film. That's not a ton of film. Look, I don't think David Mills was expecting to play on Sunday. I think throwing him in against that Browns defense was a tough spot. Now again, Carolina's defense has been great to start the season, but how great are they going to be on Thursday night? I would not touch this game, folks. I know a lot of people are betting that it's going to be a Carolina blowout, and I just don't see that. Maybe Carolina covered the spread late. Maybe they win by 10 because they're up by 7 or 3 late in the fourth quarter and they kick a field goal. But I think there's going to be a closer game for much of the game. Yes, I'm still picking Carolina to win the game. But do I think it's going to be a blowout for most of the night? No. Thursday night games are weird. You're on a short week. You pretty much throw out the tape from last week. I think Houston's going to come with whatever they got. I think David Mills is going to shock some people. I think David Mills is going to play well. Now, the next game here, we have the Chicago Bears at the Cleveland Browns. And I will preface this by saying what I said on Monday. If Andy Dalton is the starting quarterback for the Chicago Bears, I love the Browns -7. However, if Justin Fields, the rookie out of Ohio State, makes his first career start for the Chicago Bears, I will not touch this game. I know what you're saying. You're saying, Brandon, Justin Fields versus Andy Dalton. I mean, Justin Fields looked pretty bad last week. He was only 6 for 18 and he had an interception. Why would you love the Bears +7 if Justin Fields plays? And like I said on Monday, it's for a very simple reason. The Browns, since Kevin Stefanski has been the head coach and since Joe Woods has been the defensive coordinator, historically, really struggle with mobile quarterbacks. And my theory here is the exact same theory that Houston's going to deal with Thursday night with David Mills. Justin Fields was not ready to play Sunday against Cincinnati. And the Bengals defense, by the way, played the Bears very good, no matter if it was Andy Dalton or Justin Fields. Justin Fields was not ready to play. It's hard to come off the bench cold. Now with a full week of practice, a full week to scheme against the Browns, to maybe put some options, some RPOs in the playbook that you otherwise wouldn't have had with Andy Dalton as the starter, I think it is advantage Bears. Again, the Browns have only seen Justin Fields for 18 pass attempts. The weirdest thing there, and the weirdest coincidence, that David Mills and Justin Fields have the same amount of pass attempts. And to me, again, advantage Chicago. It's like Washington last year in the playoff game with Tampa Bay. Nobody saw Taylor Heineke on tape. Yeah, they had, 18, 20 passes on him, but again, that was in the middle of a game. No one sees how they scheme with Taylor Heineke. No one saw that really against the Giants because we got that one little sample size with Tampa Bay. Once you get some tape on somebody, you'll be able to figure them out. But I think the Browns, they think they're better than the Bears. They always play down to their competition, and I'm not ready to annoy Denzel Ward, Greedy Williams, and Greg Newsome, a great three-corner duo yet. The Bears got speed with Marquise Goodwin, Darnell Mooney. Of course, we know about their all-star receiver, Allen Robinson. And the Bears are 1-1, but they feel like an 0-2 team, and Matt Nagy still feels like he could be fired. This is a dangerous trap game, in my opinion, for the Browns, and I'm not going to touch this game. The next game, we got the Baltimore Ravens at the Detroit Lions. And this game, once again, feels like a trap game for the Baltimore Ravens. And why do I say that? The Ravens have played the 2-0 surprising Las Vegas Raiders early on in the year, and they just barely squeaked out a win against the Kansas City Chiefs. Baltimore could be 0-2. They played the game of their lives last week against the Kansas City Chiefs that everybody was so amped up for. And that could lead to a potential trap, lay the egg game here against a Detroit Lions team who, at least early on in the season with Dan Campbell, seem like they're well coached. They seem like they can move the ball. Jared Goff doesn't look as bad as he did last year. TJ Hockenson looks like he's going to have a breakout year for the Lions. DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams look really good at running back. Now, their defense is not what good. I mean, they gave up 41 to San Francisco. I believe they gave up, 34 points to Green Bay. So, are they going to be able to stop the run is the question mark with Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. But the one thing we know about Dan Campbell and his 80 ounces of coffee is that Dan Campbell is tough. And, I would not touch this game. Do I expect Baltimore to win by 10, 14 points? Yes. Do I expect it to be a blowout? Maybe when you look at the final score, but again, as I said, I think late in the ball game, this is going to be a closer game than people think because the Lions are at home. They seem to play well at home. They're going to want to give Dan Campbell their first win, and I think the Lions are going to clue in on stopping Lamar Jackson. They actually didn't do a bad job at giving up the run game to Aaron Jones. It was a lot of receiving out of the backfield, so that's the matchup I do worry about. Is Baltimore the better team? Absolutely. Would I touch this line +8 against the Lions? Hell no. The next game here, we got the Bengals at the Steelers. Now, Pittsburgh is favored by 3.5. And am I going to touch this game? Absolutely not. We saw what Cincinnati did last year in Cincinnati at the end of the year with Jeff Driscoll. Yes, it was at home, but they went in and beat the dog water out of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And even though Pittsburgh's 1-1, they could very well be 0-2. They're a blocked punt away from being 0-2. Buffalo outplayed them in week 1. They got outplayed by Vegas in week 2. They're not going to have their perennial pass rusher, TJ Watt. They still cannot run the football with Najee Harris. And folks, let me tell you, I said it at the start of the season when I made my 2021 NFL predictions. The Cincinnati Bengals may not win a ton of football games this year, but they're going to be in a lot of football games this year. They're going to cover a lot of spreads. I like the Steelers to win this game by 3, so I will take Cincinnati to cover. Now, these are not part of my best bets, but to me, when you have Joe Burrow, Joe Mixon, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, and I know that the Steelers, they seem like they're going to be going deep, and it seems like that you can get the ball over Cincinnati's heads. So this very well may be a high-scoring 33-30 game. Again, shockingly to me last week, that score was 7-0 Bears against the Bengals going into the fourth quarter. I think the Steelers, from what I've seen the first 2 weeks, are one of the most troubled teams in football. They don't have an identity, and they still cannot run the football. And if Cincinnati, with former Ohio State product Sam Hubbard, can get a pass rush on the Steelers, do not be surprised here if the Bengals pull the upset. I'm going to pick the Steelers by a late field goal, but this matchup to me favors Cincinnati. The next game here, we got the Chargers at the Chiefs. Now this game could really go either way. I think the Chiefs are going to be angry. I think Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid know the Chargers. I think they know Brandon Staley and his defense. I think the Chiefs -6.5. If I had a gun to my head in this game, I would bet this game, and I would take the Chiefs -6.5. I think every time the Chiefs lose, they just are going to come out angry. Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, I think they have big games for the Chiefs. However, saying that, the Chargers, they left a lot of points on the board last week, and they could have very easily defeated the Dallas Cowboys to go to 2-0. The Chargers have Derwin James this year, which they did not have against Kansas City. You know they're going to try their best to take away Tyreek Hill. And listen, Justin Herbert did not have his best game last week. I think he bounces back in a big way this week. And Austin Eckler is one of the most underrated running backs in football. Now, I don't personally love him for fantasy. I know a lot of people do because he gets a lot of points. My problem with him in fantasy football is he's never healthy. He always misses 2 to 3 games a year, and I like trustworthy players, but he's still one of the best running backs in football. This is a very curious game as well because the Chargers could very well keep this game close. They could very well cover here against the Chiefs and give the Chiefs a scare. I think there's one team in the AFC West built to beat the Chiefs. It is the Chargers. The question is, coming off the loss to Baltimore, does Kansas City just play mad and get all over the Chargers early? And if they get on the Chargers early, this is going to be an ugly game. So I'm not going to touch this game, and I wouldn't be surprised. I feel like this is going to be one way or the other. I feel like Kansas City's either going to blow them out immediately, or this game's going to come down to the wire. Next game, we got Arizona and Jacksonville. Now, this is not part of my best bets, but if I had a top 6 bet, this would be my other bet. I think Arizona rolls over Jacksonville here. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. Jacksonville, Trevor Lawrence, and with James Robinson even. I mean, I know their defense is terrible. I know the only player they really have is Josh Allen on the defensive end. And, of course, they do have Myles Jack. But their offense is bad. They don't run the football. Arizona looks like the team they should have been last year. Adding Rondale Moore, a wide receiver, was a huge addition. Not only that, but they still have Budda Baker in the back end. I know they lost Patrick Peterson, but Budda Baker is one of the most underrated safeties in football. Adding J.J. Watt to generate that pass rush next to Chandler Jones with a bad Jacksonville offensive line that's really bad at that offensive tackle. They got a good center in Linder and a good guard in Norwell at left guard, but their tackles are just absolutely trash. And I think Chandler Jones and J.J. Watt have a field day. And I would take Arizona here, minus 7.5. This next game is really tricky, in my opinion, because it is the 0-2 Indianapolis Colts going to Tennessee to take on their AFC South rival, the Tennessee Titans. Titans are favored by 5.5. Yes, they are 1-1, but it took a miracle. Over a 180-yard rushing performance. Let me say that again. Over 180-yard rushing performance by Derrick Henry to defeat the Seattle Seahawks, and the Colts always play the Titans well in Tennessee. What's so hard about this is we don't know the status of Carson Wentz. Now, I said it on Monday, Carson Wentz looked broken. When he drives back on the quarterback, it looks like his feet hurt. He does not look like the 2017 Carson Wentz that I thought we would see in Indianapolis at all. The Colts are in real trouble here because next week they go to Miami, and now that game looks like a winnable game. But after that, they got to go to Baltimore. Then in week 7, they got to play the San Francisco 49ers in San Francisco. So the Colts are in a bad spot. And as we talked about earlier with David Mills and Justin Fields, what are you going to do if Jacob Eason is the Colts starter? They don't have any tape on him. If he's confident enough and if he can play well enough, I do think the Colts can beat the Tennessee Titans. I think they're going to be able to neutralize Julio Jones and A.J. Brown. And I think Derrick Henry has a good game. Maybe he goes over 100 yards, but it's not going to be anything closer to what he did last week. I think the Colts with Jonathan Taylor. I think they play ball control. The Titans don't have a good defense, and I'm not going to bet this game because this game is a little weary to me. I just have something in my brain telling me that the Indianapolis Colts are going to cover 5.5, and they're going to actually win this football game. I'm going to take the Colts on the road, regardless of quarterback. They are a desperate team. They do not want to fall 2-0-3. Frank Reich's too good of a coach to fall to 0-3, even without Carson Wentz. I think they just run the ball down Jonathan Taylor's throat, and they find a way to win an ugly, let's say, 2017 football game. Next game here, we got the Falcons at the Giants. Oh, boy. Two teams that find a way every week to lose ball games. And listen, Atlanta, in my opinion, has more expectations this season than the Giants. The only reason why the Giants were picked to win the NFC East is because everybody thought the NFC East was the worst division in football, and I told you this year it wasn't. I said I thought that division was going to be the AFC South. Atlanta has a great offense with Calvin Ridley, with Russell Gage, with Kyle Pitts, with quarterback Matt Ryan, running back Mike Davis. Their defense, besides Grady Jarrett, is something to be had, but I just think Daniel Jones is going to get annihilated. I think that this Atlanta defensive front gets after the Giants. The Giants' offensive line is still bad. I think the Giants and the Falcons, two teams that find a way to lose. I think somehow the Giants find a way to lose again. I think that this Atlanta team is going to play hard, just like the Lions and Dan Campbell. They want to get Arthur Smith his first win as a head coach. Heck, Arthur Smith put up 25 points on Tampa Bay's defense. I think Atlanta is starting to find itself. They got Kyle Pitts the ball more last week. He had 5 catches. And I think Matt Ryan plays very well here against a very overrated Giants defense, in my opinion. And again, the Giants, they're a desperate team here, though, too, because they are also 0-2. And they lost at home to the Broncos, and they lost a heartbreaker to Washington. I think it's going to be hard to overcome that. Again, I don't think Daniel Jones is the franchise quarterback, and I think the Giants drop to 0-3. Now, we're going to get to my first best bet of the weekend, and that is Washington. Now, I don't pick them to win this game. Let me make this clear. I am picking the Bills to win at home, but I am picking Washington to cover plus 7.5. So, in my opinion, Washington's got one of the best defensive lines in football. The Buffalo Bills have a so-so average offensive line. The Bills do not run the football. Now, I think the Bills, Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, are going to be able to put points up on Washington. But I think Chase Young, Jonathan Allen, Montez Sweat, I think that these guys are going to be able to get after the quarterback a little bit here. And I think they give Buffalo a fight for their money. I think Tyler Heineke plays well. I think Terry McLaurin has a good game. I think Logan Thomas especially has a good game here for Washington. And I just like the way Washington played. They were in a tough game against the Chargers. They were in a tough game against the Giants. They very well should be 0-2, but they're not. They're 1-1. I think Ron Rivera, defensive guy, knows Sean McDermott from their time together in Philadelphia under Andy Reid back in the early 2000s in the Donovan McNabb Philadelphia Eagles era. And look, man, Washington's going to play hard. They're going to cover this game. This game is going down to the wire. And I apologize. That's also my second bet because I'm also going to take Atlanta plus 3 against the Giants. I forgot to mention that. So again, I'm going to take Atlanta plus 3 against the Giants, and I'll take Washington plus 7.5 against Buffalo. The other 1 o'clock game here that I am going to bet is going to be New England minus 2.5 against the Saints. A lot of people are saying that the Patriots are looking to add to Tampa Bay next week, which we know isn't true because we know Belichick doesn't look ahead to anything. And plus, by the way, next week, no matter what the line is, I will already put my reputation on the line. I will already put my name on record. No matter what, Tampa Bay will be favored in that game. I am going to take New England. I think Bill Belichick is going to scheme up something that Tom Brady has never seen before. I think Bill Belichick's going to coach the greatest game he's ever coached. I think they're going to knock off the Tampa Bay Buccaneers no matter what, because that's all Bill Belichick lives to do for this season. But before we get there, they have a home game against the New Orleans Saints, and to me, the Saints' Week 1 win was fool's gold. The Week 2 blowout loss to Carolina is exactly who they are. They're not a good team without Michael Thomas. Carolina figured that out. All you have to do is take away Alvin Kamara. He only had 8 carries for 5 yards in Week 2. And after that, they have no other weapons. I think Belichick's going to be able to do that. I think they run the football against a very overrated Saints defense. And listen, the Saints' first 3 games are on the road. They return back home to the new Caesar Superdome in New Orleans, Week 4 against the New York Giants. And they're going to win that football game, and they're going to get to 2-2. But this week is a bad spot for them. It's their final week out of a hotel. I think this is an easy cover for New England, minus 2.5. I think they win by at least a touchdown here, if not more. And getting now to the 4 o'clock games, we got the Jets at Denver. Now, Denver is minus 10.5. That's a lot of points. And this is what I will say about the Jets. Zach Wilson had a god-awful Week 2 against New England. We saw in his first 5 pass attempts, he threw 3 interceptions. That's not going to happen. Yes, Denver has a good defense, but Zach Wilson isn't going to play that bad again. On the flip side for Denver, they have played the 0-2 Giants and the 0-3 Jaguars. And in my opinion, at the end of Week 3, they're going to play the 0-3 Giants, the 0-3 Jaguars, and the 0-3 Jets. So Denver may be 3-0, but their opponents combined will be 0-9. And then they get Baltimore at home. That will be something to look out for in Week 4. That's Denver's first test to see if they are for real or not. I think Teddy Bridgewater just takes care of the football. Now, that's a lot of points here, so I'm not going to bet this game. I think the Jets may lose by 10, so the Jets may cover by a half. But the Broncos are going to win this game. They're going to be 3-0. But again, I think all 3 of their opponents may be 0-3. The only shot they have is if the Giants beat Atlanta, because that game is a little bit closer, even though I am taking Atlanta plus 3. If that happens, though, the Broncos' opponents will start off 1-8. Whoop-de-doo. Denver's a fool's gold team. And even though they have a 3-0 start, I think that they're the fakest 3-0 team I've seen in a long time. Next game, we get the Dolphins at the Raiders. Now, I don't know who their quarterback is. I don't know if it's Tua Tagovailoa. I don't know if it's Jacoby Brissett. But, folks, this is a trap game for the Las Vegas Raiders. Not only are the Dolphins 1-1, not only do they should be 0-2 because Damian Harris fumbled that ball Week 1 against New England, which they should have won. But they got blown out last week by Buffalo. And what do we always say about teams that get blown out? The next week, they come back and they play very well. And I think Vegas is too much on a high. I think they may get knocked down a peg. So this game makes me very nervous. It sets up very well for a Miami upset. With that being said, though, Vegas is going to have revenge on their mind because they should have beat Miami last year in Vegas if it wasn't for that dumb penalty at the end of the game. Las Vegas this year, Derek Carr's got confidence. That defense with Carl Nassib, now Casey Hayward in the back end. They had KJ Wright, the linebacker from Seattle, Unique Ndakwe from Minnesota, I believe. They are for real. They are legit. They have a pass rush, and the Las Vegas Raiders, unlike their division rival Denver Broncos, they've beaten the Baltimore Ravens and they've beaten the Pittsburgh Steelers in Pittsburgh. That is hard to do. They are a legit 2-0, and so that's why I'm going to pick Vegas. You know, I think they got a good matchup here against the Dolphins. I think they do win. But again, this is very tricky because the Dolphins got blown out 35-0. You know they're embarrassed. You know they're going to come out giving everything they got. The question is, no matter what Tua or Jacoby Brissett, can they get the ball down the field enough to beat the Las Vegas Raiders? And I'm going to say the answer is no. Next game here, we got the Seattle Seahawks going to Minnesota. Now this is a very interesting game because the Vikings are +2. And the Vikings should be 2-0 and they're 0-2. And you know, in my opinion, Mike Zimmer is on the clock because his defense all last year and the first 2 weeks of this year has been horrendous. And as I've said for however long we've been doing this podcast for the first 3 weeks of the NFL season, I keep hearing about this vaunted, better Mike Zimmer defense. They got all these guys, right? They got Patrick Peterson. They got Eric Hendricks. They got Anthony Barr. They got all of these playmakers. They got Harrison Smith. Where have they been? Because they're giving up 34 to Arizona. And what was it? 31? Something like that to Cincinnati? Maybe it was 34 again. To Cincinnati? Are you kidding me? Now they got Seattle. They got Russell Wilson, who almost never loses in the East Coast time zone. Whew. But the Vikings cannot, I repeat, they cannot start this year 0-3. This is going to be their first home game. That Viking faithful is going to be cheering loudly for the Vikings. They got one of the best fans in the league, even though I don't love their team. Seattle's defense is bad. I think Kirk Cousins needs to bounce back. Yes, Seattle had a bad loss last week, and that makes this game even more interesting because Seattle gave up a lot of yards to Derrick Henry. And you know Pete Carroll is going to want that corrected, but listen, early in the year, the Seahawks defense is usually not as good as they are late in the year. I think Dalvin Cook has a big game. Justin Jefferson has a big game. Adam Thielen has a big game. And I think Seattle's going to be able to score points. I think Minnesota, much like all other games this year, are going to be in a shootout. And folks, I got the Minnesota Vikings winning this game. I think they cover the +2. Now, I'm not going to bet this game, but I really do like the Vikings. But then again, I think the Vikings could find a way to Viking it and lose it again, which is why I won't bet this game. Now, the next game, we got the Bucs at the Rams. Now, this is pretty much a pick-em. I've seen it be, anywhere from the Rams -0.5 to Tampa Bay -2.5. I will just say I'm going to bet this game based off the winner because right now it's Rams +1, at least on the Fox Sports app, the Fox Bet Super 6 app, which is where we are getting all of our lines from today. And I'm going to pick the Bucs. I know a lot of people like the Rams because they think Tom Brady and Tampa are looking ahead in New England. I don't think Brady looks ahead to anything. And listen, the Rams, yes, this is their home opener in SoFi Stadium. Yes, they looked really good against the Colts last week in Week 1. Why do I keep thinking that this is their home opener? I said that on Monday too, yet they play the Bears at home in Week 1. So I don't know why I keep saying that, but listen, for Tampa Bay, this is their first road game of the year. That is something they have to go from the Deep South all the way out to the West Coast. But you know Tom Brady, you know Chris Godwin, you know Antonio Brown, you know Mike Evans. Yes, they have Jalen Ramsey as a corner, but they don't have anything else. I think their offensive line is going to be able to block up Aaron Donald, and I think the Bucs, in my opinion, here, in a close game, I do think they beat the Rams. I'm going to give it 27-24 score. Sunday Night Football, we got the Packers at the Niners. Now, the Niners are favored by 3.5, and I've seen a ton of people pick San Francisco in this game, and I'm going to go the opposite here. I like Green Bay +3.5. If Aaron Rodgers plays well, the Packers are going to win this football game. I made my preseason predictions. I thought this is the game that Trey Lance starts for San Francisco. And if I was the coach, if I was Kyle Shanahan, I would start Trey Lance because I've seen enough of Jimmy Garoppolo. He's missing wide open guys. They're winning just based off their run game, and the Niners have a great offensive and defensive line. And Green Bay losing Corey Lindsey to the Chargers and losing David Bakhtiari scares me here with Nick Bosa. But you know Aaron Rodgers is going to hear all the chatter. Oh, the Lions won at halftime in Week 2. Oh, the Packers still don't look great. Can they defeat San Francisco 49ers? They got blown out of the building in the NFC Championship game 2 years ago. You know Aaron Rodgers isn't going to want to get blown out of the building again. I think Aaron Rodgers plays tremendously well. I think Devontae Adams has a great game. Now, whether or not Aaron Jones has a great game like he had last week against the Lions, I'm not sure. I think this is the Devontae Adams game. I think even Montez Valdez-Scantling comes out for Green Bay. And even without Za'Darius Smith, I think they do just enough on defense. San Francisco doesn't have the wide receivers. I think Matt LaFleur and Green Bay finally figure out Kyle Shanahan and the Niners scheme. And I think on Sunday night, back in his hometown state of California in San Francisco, Aaron Rodgers and Green Bay walk out victorious. And the next game, we got Monday Night Football. My Philadelphia Eagles taking on the Dallas Cowboys. Folks, it is Dallas week. And just like in your local market, whether it's Patriots Bills, whether it's Chiefs Broncos, whether it's Browns Steelers, whether it's Packers Bears, whatever the matchup is, this is the matchup for my Philadelphia Eagles. It is Dallas week. Both teams are 1-1, and Nick Sirianni is coming off maybe some of the worst play calling I've ever seen in the history of my lifetime being a Philadelphia Eagles fan last week, costing us that game against the San Francisco 49ers. This is a huge, big game for Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts to win the fan base over as the face of the franchise The Eagles always play well in Dallas. Now, the Cowboys defense looks better than last year, but they're about to get a good test. Jalen Hurts has played well the first 2 weeks of the year. I think the Eagles come in motivated more than the Dallas Cowboys. They're on the road as a 4-point dog. Now, I'm not going to bet this game because I like to bet different teams, and I don't like to bet my team every single week. But, give me the Eagles here, +4 if I had to bet. How could I be an Eagles fan and pick against them to lose to the Cowboys? It is against in my vein. Even if the Cowboys were looking to be 17-0 and the Eagles were looking to be 0-17, God forbid, the last game of the season, I would still pick my Philadelphia Eagles. You would not get me to pick the Cowboys defeating the Eagles. It's just impossible. As an Eagles fan, you cannot, especially early in the season, pick the Eagles to go down to Dallas and lose. The Eagles have had success before in Dallas. Chip Kelly, when he was the Eagles head coach, went 3-0 against the Cowboys in Dallas. The funny thing is he never won in Philly against the Cowboys, but he always won in Dallas against the Cowboys. And Doug Peterson was the complete opposite. He'd win in Philly, he would lose in Dallas. We're about to see what Nick Sirianni can do. I think Nick Sirianni, I told you on Monday, I like the way he owned up to his bad play calling. That Philly special plan, fourth down. Oh my goodness, man. Just kick the field goal. Take the point, Sirianni. But yeah, my Eagles, in my opinion, are going to make me one happy man. And the Eagles are going to win on Monday night. And they're going to go to 2-1. Washington's going to drop to 1-2. And at the end of week 3, the Philadelphia Eagles are walking out NFC East in first place in Jerry's world. Now, this is the Cowboys home opener. That scares me a little bit. But I love the fact the Cowboys beat the Chargers last week. As I said, if the Cowboys would have been 0-2 and the Eagles would have been 2-0, it would have been almost a recipe for disaster. I think the Cowboys could have walked in there and killed us because I think schedule matters and I think wins and losses matter, especially early in the season. When there's only 17 games, teams are going to look desperate. They're going to play their heart out to try to win these ball games. Now both teams are 1-1. The Eagles seem like the desperate team. Coming off a game against the Niners, they should have absolutely won last week. Mike McCarthy looks like a dope managing the clock, so I'm not afraid of him at all. And I got my Philadelphia Eagles winning this game. And I'm going to say by a final score of 27-24, these games always come down to the wire. I wouldn't be surprised, by the way, if this game goes to overtime and almost gives me a heart attack. So again, my best bets here, though, are going to be New England -2.5 against the Saints. Atlanta +3 to outright defeat the New York Giants. Washington +7.5 to cover against Buffalo. I think the Bills win, but I'll take Washington +7.5. I'll take Tampa Bay -1 against the Rams, and I'll take Green Bay +3.5 to outright defeat the Niners. So I got 3 dogs in Washington, Green Bay, and Atlanta, and I got 2 favorites in New England and Tampa Bay. My picks are, I got Carolina over Houston, the Browns over the Bears, Baltimore over Detroit, Pittsburgh over Cincinnati, Kansas City over the Chargers, Arizona over Jacksonville, Indy over Tennessee, Atlanta over the Giants, Buffalo over Washington, New England over the Saints, Denver over the Jets, Vegas over Miami, Minnesota over Seattle, Tampa Bay over the Rams in the late 4 o'clock window, Green Bay Sunday night to beat San Francisco, and Philly Monday night to defeat Dallas.